All right, welcome back. This is part two to the Stearns chapter 12 video. We're picking up in the section of the textbook called Twantin Sinew, World of the Incas. In the first video, we talked extensively about the Aztecs. Now we're going to take a look at the Incas. Prior to the creation of the Inca Empire, there was a lot of fighting that was taking place in this part of the world, in the Andes Mountains, and you can compare it to the post-Toltec period in Mesoamerica, when the Aztecs were at war and taking over the Toltecs. And the most powerful group came to power, and this was the Incas, and they are going to develop a new civilization. The Inca Empire, and they refer to their own empire as Huantincinu. They did not call it the Inca Empire. We refer to it as the Inca Empire. Inca is actually what they called their chief ruler. This empire is going to stretch from Colombia to Chile, eastward into Bolivia, down to present day Argentina, touches that a little bit. And there was roughly 9 to 13 million people that were under Inca rule. One of the things that is important to note is the Incas were similar to the Romans in a sense of they focused on expansion. The Inca had other reasons for expansion besides the desire for economic gain and political power. They adopted the practice of split inheritance, which means all of the rulers' political power went to the successor, while all the wealth and land passed to male descendants for the eternal support of the cult of the dead rulers who served in intermediaries with the gods. And so what happens is this system creates justification for endless expansion. They're wanting to grow more and more and more so that they can pass more political power and more wealth on to descendants. But keep in mind, split inheritance is something that you want to note from the book there. The sun was the highest deity. The ruler, the Inca, was seen as gods, the main god's representative on earth. So they are polytheistic. They believe in different gods, the sun being the highest deity. The popular belief was based upon animism, which is where they give natural items spiritual power. Let's move on to a section of the book called The Techniques of Inca Imperial Rule. The Inca considered the Inca, who was considered virtually a god, uh, ruled from a major temple in the empire. The empire was divided into four major provinces, and each province had a governor. So, similarly to the Persians with 20 different satraps, the Incas have four provinces with governors. The Incas had a bureaucracy in which most of the nobility served. They had a complex system of roads, bridges, causeways, way stations, storehouses. Military movement was very good throughout this region, which you wouldn't think because it's so mountainous, but their road system was pretty extensive, which allowed the military to move easily. The people that the Incas conquered would serve as their labor force. They also conquered people served in the military, and they were given, even the conquered people were rewarded for helping with new conquests. All the local resources were taken and redistributed by the government. There were lands for the people. Uh, the government had land. Religious groups were given land. Labor on the state and religious land was demanded by the people rather than a tribute to be made. Women had to weave cloth for court and religious uses. Some women were taken as concubines for the Inca, for the ruler, or as temple servants. Most of the men in the Inca Empire were peasants and herders. Women worked in the household, they wove cloth, they helped with agriculture. Even though there is, you can call complementarity is the term they use of the sexes here. If you look in this section of the textbook, the techniques of the Inca emperor rule, one of the things you want to note is that there's parallel descent. So the men do have the majority of the power, but they trace descendancy both through paternal, which is the fatherly line, and maternal. And so women could inherit things. But because there was such a focus on conquest, the men are going to have more power because the men made up the main fighting force. Gods and goddesses were both venerated in male and female deities. Women had a special filling for the moon and the fertility goddess of the earth and corn. So there are deities. Women's deities are going to be focused more on the moon and focus more on fertility, things like that. Within the system, the Inca nobility, there were a lot of privileges, and the way that they would distinguish social stratification was by the way people dressed. Different customs people would participate in, the way that people dressed often distinguish their status in society. The royals would engage in multiple marriages. Marriages were seen to form alliances with other groups. Now I want to move on to a section of the book called Inca Cultural Achievements, and we're about to wrap up with this. The Inca produced beautiful pottery and cloth. Their metallurgy, meaning making metal, was among the most advanced in the Americas. However, they lacked the wheel, W-H-E-E-L. They lacked the wheel and a writing system. See, the Mayans had a writing system, the Incas did not. Instead, what they would use was a set of knotted strings called the quipu, Q-U-I-P-U, and they would use this set of knotted strings to keep track of accounting, who owed who money, and things like that. The peaks of the Incas' genius were in statecraft and architecture. So their government system was very advanced, and they were very good builders. They were very good at architecture. They constructed great stone buildings. They used agricultural terracing, cutting steps into the side of the hill, the mountainside for farming. They had very extensive irrigation projects and road systems. Now, the last thing that I want to note here is comparing the Incas and the Aztecs. And whenever Coach Dragon and I talk about comparing, you always want to be ready for the possibility of a comparative essay, a long essay where you might compare something. Not promising this is going to happen, but I would pay close attention to this list of similarities and differences between the Incas and the Aztecs. Let me start with similarities. Number one, both empires were based upon the long development of civilizations that preceded them. What I mean is, both the Aztecs and the Incas built upon advancement prior in Native American groups in the Americas. Number two, they both excelled in imperial and military organization. Number three, the two were based upon the intensive agriculture organized by the state, and they both redistributed goods. Number four, the Aztecs and the Incas transformed an older kinship system, which was called the Capui and the Aztecs, into a hierarchical one where the nobility dominated. So they transformed, they both started off as kinship groups and people groups. They're going to transform into having these really powerful kings. I think this is number five. In both the Aztecs and the Incas, the nobility provided the state with personnel, meaning workers. Although the Incas tried to integrate their empire as a unit, this is number six. Both empires recognized local ethnic groups and political leaders in return for loyalty. So many groups that they conquered, people said they would be loyal to them. They incorporated them into the society. Number seven, the Aztecs and the Incas found their military power less effective against nomadic frontier people. So they all had trouble with people on the outskirts of their empire fighting against them. And finally, their empires were based on conquest and the exploitation of settled people around them. Now let's talk about the differences. Number one, there were a lot of differences between the Incas and the Aztecs, which primarily were seen as a result of the different climates and the different geography. So look at the different locations. The Aztecs are located primarily in central Mexico and in the Yucatan Peninsulas, where they kind of expanded into where the Mayans once controlled. Very tropical. The Incas are located in a mountainous region in South America. So the climate is going to be very different. The geography is going to be very different, which is going to cause them to develop somewhat differently. Trade and markets were much more developed in the Aztecs. Other differences were present in metalworking, writing systems. Aztecs had it, Incas didn't. Incas used the quipu rope to kind of keep track of accounting and things like that. Social definition is going to be set up differently. Hierarchy is set up differently. In the context of world civilizations, both can be viewed as variations of similar patterns. So there were a lot of similarities, but definitely differences. And mostly what we see is sedentary agriculture is going to be really, really important to both of these people. Throwing in one last similarity there. That is the information that you need to be successful for chapter 12 when it comes to taking the Stearns chapters 11 and 12 test, which will happen 1 or 2 class periods after Thanksgiving break. So good luck studying. There has been a review video already made and posted online for the Stearns chapters 11 and 12 review sheet video. So hope this was helpful. See Coach Dragone and I for any questions that you have, anything that we need to clarify. We will spend some time in class clarifying these things, and hopefully this helps a lot. And so this video has also been approved by Coach Dragone. Fly, Eagles, fly.